So Resident Evil 3 Remake has been out for a while now, and the countless reviews have been shared on this platform, where we had the chance to hear the good, the bad, and the so-so reviews that this game has gotten.
What?
But as an avid fan of this franchise, I felt like I had to sit back and relax and let the dust settle before releasing my review for this game, because I want to cover this game in an objective perspective. So in this video, we'll discuss my true review for RE3 Remake and see what good aspects it brought to the franchise, the changes it made compared to the original Resident Evil 3, and even discuss some of the low points that needed to be pointed out.
What? Keep dreaming.
Anyways, before we do get started with the video, I just want to say my name's DeVuH, and I do cover a lot of Resident Evil and other survival horror content on my channel. So if you guys enjoy these types of videos, then please feel free to like and subscribe for more content like this in the future, and also possibly adding me both on Instagram and on Twitter, where you guys can message me there personally at any time.
Are we still a team?
Always.
Alright, so starting off, so far, we've got a good range of mixed reviews for this game, with some praising the overall combat and how Nemesis was portrayed, with some giving the title an average rating, stating that it lacks in comparison compared to what we saw from RE2 Remake. But here in my true review, let's delve in on these topics and see what positives and negative changes they've made compared to the original version, which we could start with the overall story and setting, because in the original RE3, the premise starts off with Jill Valentine's monologue of Raccoon City's ineptitude, where most of the people didn't stand up to the Umbrella Corporation, which was partly due to most of the population within the city being employed by them. Also, the cover-up story that ensued after Resident Evil 1 made it seem like the STARS team was incompetent with the way they handled the Spencer Mansion incident. But after Jill's monologue, we get a chance to watch the outbreak in full display with one of the longer cutscenes in this game, with most of the population decimated and the police force overwhelmed, and even the Umbrella's UBCS unit taken over. It was a great treat for us to see this prior to us starting the game, which already sets the tone and precedence of this outbreak. Which would compare this to the opening with RE3 Remake, where instead of having a longer cutscene of the city being overrun with the zombies and monsters, instead we get, in my opinion, one of the better tone-setting moments of this game, which has us in a solemn state of Jill's apartment, which gives us a large amount of clues of what her life has been after the events of RE1, because if we rummage around her apartment, we get a chance to read some of the documents that indicate her current position, with one coming from fan favorite Brad the Chickenheart Vickers, where in summary, the document states that Jill wasn't treated right after RE1. Also, if we look around, we get to see the overall setting that she's been basking in, with a wall dedicated to solving the mysteries behind Umbrella's shady dealings within the city. Then the next moment will be topped off when we see this. Of course, this plays into our trauma after the Spencer Mansion incident, where most of the STARS members were killed due to all the zombies and the other BOWs that roamed the Arklay Mountains. Also, I can speculate that this trauma for Jill could have been a nod to the Resident Evil Chinese manhwa, and how Jill had a flashback after being infected by Nemesis. Anyways, this opening sequence will be concluded when we have Brad call Jill, telling her to escape as soon as possible, which makes sense after we see this, our very first intro to Nemesis and RE3 Remake. Anyways, with this intro to this tyrant, I'll be honest, it was a cool sequence where we try to escape her apartment while he constantly torments her, though this pales in comparison to his original intro from the classic RE3, which we'll get into once we start covering their characters as a whole. Anyway, so far, RE3 Remake's intro has been solid, giving us a good portrayal prior to the mayhem that's about to ensue, but comparing this to the classic RE3, I feel as though they missed the mark because it would have been great to see the citywide infection in a full cutscene, giving us the gravity of the situation at hand, especially with a new RE engine within their disposal. But as the game goes on, we traverse through this rendition of Raccoon City, giving us several new places to explore, with some areas are a direct nod to the original version, but here's where a lot of reviewers are in agreement, and for me, I have to agree with them as well, which was the lack of exploration for Raccoon City, and the way they omitted certain key areas that were iconic in the original game.
What?
With some examples were the diner and the Raccoon City Press, because both areas were used in the original RE3 as boss battle arenas, allowing us to choose our pathways depending on how we play.
Anyway, name's Carlos. Glad to meet you, lady.
Also, if we make certain choices, we get different dialogues or scenes, with one example was with Jill chucking a grenade in the kitchen area of the diner.
Are you crazy? You could have barbecued both of us.
Or we see Carlos and Jill hide behind the wall while Nemesis stalks them. Which in contrast to this new remake, yes, we do have new areas like Moon's Donuts and other miscellaneous stores, but overall, it didn't have that same effect as we explored the areas of old, because here, it felt like another generic room that we had to explore, nothing really special happening besides some small Easter eggs if we looked and listened hard enough, which to be honest was a big letdown in that regard, because there were endless possibilities that they could have implemented when it came to the exploration of this ruined city. Though some callbacks to RE2 Remake was cool when we went to Kendo's gun shop and going through the RPD station again, which was a nice tie-in within the lore of the two games.
Don't do anything stupid.
Oh, that's your job, right?
But besides these small tie-ins between the two remakes, one of the biggest negatives to this game was the lack of the Clock Tower area, the Raccoon City Park, and the Dead Factory, which had me wonder why exactly were these places omitted. I mean, each area gave us something new to explore, and even the Dead Factory even hinted about a battle between the T-103 Tyrants and the many mercenaries in the city, which overall they replaced all this with a small sewer portion, the new area where we had to go up against some of the Drain demos, and the Umbrella Nest area underneath the revamped hospital, which makes me question on why exactly they would go with this approach, especially since they did so well showing us all these new settings, but would lack on some areas of the game, which this exact aspect plays with some of the characters as well, because some are fleshed out more, giving us a great character to hate or love depending on the situation, with great examples were with Nikolai and how much of a jerk he was in this game.
Carlos! No!
Knew you couldn't pull the trigger.
But I would say in a good way, where we genuinely would love to hate this character, but this would be counteracted with the lack of importance of certain characters like Murphy and especially Brad Vickers, because remember earlier in the video that I mentioned that they changed the intro to Nemesis compared to the original RE3, which this coincides with Brad's role in that game, because in that version, he was the one who sets up the notion of a monster who hunts down STARS members, setting up that tension prior to our encounter with Nemesis.
Listen, he's coming for us. We're both gonna die.
What are you saying?
You'll see. He's after STARS members. There's no escape.
And of course that's topped off when we finally make it to the RPD station and we get this amazing boss intro, which the gravity of this event shows how terrifying Nemesis was and how helpless Brad was with this new pursuer tyrant. Instead, here we have Brad literally maybe have 2 or 3 minutes of screen time, and not only that, we don't get a similar scene like in the original, with the only nod to the past with this remake when dealing with Brad was his encounter with a zombie in the bar area. But instead of escaping after the zombie encounter, here we see him with Jill for a brief moment, then afterwards, he's left to be forgotten until a short while later with Marvin Bratnall.
Not you too. Sorry.
Which was a complete missed opportunity for Brad's character to be completely redeemed after being known as Chickenheart, because if you guys didn't know, Brad was a pilot for Star's Alpha team during RE1, but at the start of that game, he decided to fly away and leaving his comrades behind to fend for themselves in the Arklay Mountains.
No! Don't go!
So the missed opportunity would have been his heroic act of encountering Nemesis like in the original version, but instead of being completely destroyed by Nemesis, maybe he could have fended off the tyrant in some capacity, and letting Jill survive in a great heroic moment, finally erasing the name of Chickenheart from his character. But instead, we get a small heroic moment of him letting Jill escape while he holds off some of the zombies, which is cool and all, but compared to what could have been, this moment pales in comparison.
Are we still a team?
Always.
Then do me a favor. Don't fuck up like I did. Go!
Anyways, this trope of some characters being fleshed out more compared to others did happen with our other side protagonists, with McCallum Victor having a bit more to work with his initial encounter, but the battle between him and Nemesis inside the cable car would be omitted, which was a big letdown since that was one of my favorite scenes from the original RE3.
Get off my train. Shit, bird!
Anyways, overall, this give and take in regards to enhancing certain aspects to the game, while omitting some of the iconic moments was some of the negative factors to this remake. But by the end of the game, it was great to see that we still had a great conclusion with Nemesis, and how well portrayed he was with his initial and especially his final transformation, which was a much needed change compared to his initial version where he was definitely a lesser version of himself in the classic RE3, but I'll be dissecting Nemesis as a character more in another video, so stay tuned for that in the future. Anyways, the final drawback that we see with this game, even with all the new great additions that we've seen so far, it was unfortunate that we didn't get to see the sequence by sequence destruction of Raccoon City, with the original version even showing certain iconic buildings right before their eradication. Anyways, in the end, this was definitely a solid Resident Evil game, though if compared to RE2 Remake and the amount of material that was not recreated from the original RE3, it may have seemed that it missed the mark in some capacity. Also, I want to note that I will be doing a separate Nemesis video in regards to his changes and how he compares to Mr. X, where surprisingly Mr. X did a lot of things in RE2 Remake that may give him the edge compared to Nemesis, so stay tuned for that in the near future. Anyways, what did you guys think about Resident Evil 3 Remake as a whole, and which parts did you like and dislike about the game? Please let me know and why on the comment section down below. Also, if you guys enjoyed the content, then please feel free to check out my other Resident Evil videos on my channel as well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, you guys have a great rest of your day, and this is Hey DeVuH, and I'll see you guys on the next video.